Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests, with host Christina Nichman.
Wednesday, July 15th, 2015, from 6 to 9 p.m., Savvy Central Radio hosts our fourth live interactive business networking event and interview with our guest, national seminar leader and best-selling author Paul Mlađenović. Paul shares with us his classic program, Zero Cost Marketing. Come join us for a fun-filled evening with fellow entrepreneurs over light fare and cocktails as you build valuable contents and knowledge. If you're in the New York City area, get your tickets today and come join us at bit.ly.com/savvymarketing. Hello everyone and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest today is Dr. Brian Schriner. Brian has over 25 years of higher education teaching and administrative experience. In 2011, he was appointed Dean of FIU College of Architecture and the Arts, Carta. Under Brian's leadership and faculty members' expertise, the college academic programs have ascended to national prominence, with the united mission to deploy the power of architecture and the arts to engage the global community to create innovative and inspiring solutions to social, economic, and environmental problems. To find out more about Carta, visit fiu.edu. Hi, Brian. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Christina?
I'm doing fabulous, and I'm really excited that you were able to join us for our State of the Nation segment this month on Savvy. We are focusing on different problems facing the nation, and you've done amazing work at your college, the College of Architecture and Arts, Carta, by raising over $7.5 million in philanthropy. In just 4 years, you also raised additional revenue, doubling the college's annual revenue to $30 million. This is phenomenal. Tell us a little bit about how you came to working with Carta and how you accomplished this amazing feat.
Sure. Thank you. First, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to participate in the conversation. Raising the money really wasn't the goal. It was what the money would be used for. Mm-hmm. And when I was fortunate enough to become the Dean of the College of Architecture and the Arts at Florida International University here in Miami, Florida, meeting with the faculty, we quickly came to realize that what we needed to do in the college, because it is a brand new college, it was only formed in 2006, so we're a little bit less than 10 years old, is that we are a college unique in composition and unique in mission across the United States. Unique in composition, we were one of the first colleges in the U.S. to combine the design arts, architecture, interior architecture, landscape architecture, with music, theater, art history, and communication. Mm-hmm. And when you start joining those disciplines, you get a lot of creative people together. So we thought, when we have all these creative people together, how can we create a unique mission then? And the mission we created is one that's transdisciplinary. So we stopped looking at education in silos, and we started thinking about how can we train, educate the complete individual so when he or she leaves our institution, that they're fully prepared for their chosen career path. So we adopted a mission of using the power of architecture and the arts to create, innovate, and inspire solutions to local challenges that have national and global impacts. So very quickly, the local community and national community as well began looking at us as somewhat of a role model for higher education and saying, okay, we're able to create public-private partnerships with this university because they're building a brand, or this college is building a brand, about becoming a solution center in our community. They're really concerned about educating the individual as they move from the classroom into their chosen profession. We have an opportunity to work with them and develop that curriculum that makes sense.
This is fascinating, and I don't know if everyone in the audience is familiar with the STEAM model of education, because you're going from STEM to STEAM, which is basically adding the arts. Explain a little bit about what that's all about and how this unique educational model can actually transform the nation and students going into the world.
Right, the STEM to STEAM. STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which are 4 key disciplines and President Obama has been very specific about these are disciplines that are going to be driving the economy in the future. And in 2013, and even prior to that, the Congress has adopted now a STEAM caucus. But the idea behind adding the A, which stands for also arts and design, was that it was by combining the divergent thinking and convergent thinking that's going to drive innovation. Innovation is going to be what's going to be driving the economy in the 21st century. Just like science and technology drove the 20th century, it's arts and design combined with science and technology that'll be driving the 21st century. So at FIU, what we are doing in our curriculum is we're creating really design thinkers or design thinking, and that our students are well trained in what we call divergent thinking, which means brainstorming. They can come up with a lot of innovative, creative potential, some realized and some unrealized solutions to problems. And that is a very specific skill set that is not always taught in other disciplines. And then you combine that with the convergent thinking, which is making things back narrow again, where you start analyzing solutions. And when you add the A to the STEM, you get STEAM in the sense of combining the divergent with the convergent thinking. So our thinking at FIU is that by training our students to be able to think in both ways, much like how the Renaissance created all these wonderful inventions, these were both scientists and artists who had the ability to think of things that others couldn't think about, but then also the ability to implement.
So basically, it really shows how bringing in creativity into the model and using the art and maybe more of your right brain actually help in unison by using more of your left brain and science and all that.
Exactly. It's not that it's one versus the other. It's actually complement to one and the other, where you have artists working with scientists. And scientists who are trained scientists can be just as creative as non-scientists, and artists certainly have the ability to be as scientific as scientists. So it's bringing these two together. So, for example, in 2011, our campus is in Western Miami, and we decided that we wanted to open a facility on Miami Beach. So we developed 16,000 square feet on Lincoln Road on Miami Beach. And now we have one of the nation's first, I believe it will be the first, MakerBot innovation labs here in an art and design school. There's a few other MakerBot innovation labs. A MakerBot is, by the way, a 3D printer. So arts and design school, we will have every other student will have a personal 3D printer for him or her to realize what they're thinking about. They're actually going to be able to make it. So these 3D printers can be networked. So you can create one thing or multiple things all at the same time, or they can work individually. So that's just one example of the divergent and convergent thinking coming together for innovation purposes. Now, I didn't fund that. The generosity of the Knight Foundation here in Miami said, this is a national model that we should be looking at. So our innovation lab, which will open this fall, is not just for FIU students in the College of Architecture and the Arts, but it's open to the entire community to come in and learn about 3D printing and experience what that means for them.
But what exactly is 3D printing for anyone who's curious about that?
3D printing is unlike two-dimensional printing where something prints on a piece of paper. It prints in 3 dimensions. So it's usually through plastic or some form of filament. It almost looks like a weed whacker filament. And you put it, you program the computer of the 3D object you're trying to create, and then the printer actually creates that object. So it can be used for medical technology. There's 3D printing body parts these days, but also artistically, 3D art now is becoming very, very popular. So there's all kind of uses for the 3D printer. What I find interesting, and I had to learn about 3D printing a few years ago as well. It's a relatively new form of technology. We want to teach our students so when they graduate, they're well equipped with the tools they need to be successful in their chosen profession.
Yeah. And help me out if I'm right here. Would incorporating both ways of thinking also help with critical thinking skills?
Exactly. In fact, not just critical thinking, but critical making. It's a new term, because we're teaching them to think critically, divergently and convergently, as I mentioned before. But then now they're applying those skills and they're making stuff. So maybe they're critical thinkers and critical makers.
Yeah. And that's a very important point to make, because it's one thing to have the knowledge, it's another thing to actually apply it.
Exactly.
So I know we mentioned when I spoke to your colleague that also you're really, really taking the time to help the graduates actually assimilate into the work environment, because we spoke before that a lot of graduates are entering into the workforce and not really ready and having the tools and all this debt, and they're just really overwhelmed. Tell us some of the ways in which your university is actually helping students be prepared for entering the work life.
One of the things we do is we partner with the community, industry and the community as much as possible. And this, what I mean by that is what we call win-win partnerships, in that if we are responsible for training the creative workforce here in Miami or nationally, it's important for us to partner with them during the educational process, meaning the community industry, so we understand what skill sets they're looking for. So when our students graduate, they're prepared. Mm-hmm. So we create advisory boards for industry to give us feedback on curriculum. We create internships opportunities for students. We try to ask every student, or we incorporate it into their degree, where they should take at least one internship so they understand what that field, what that discipline is, what skills they need. We try to educate them, as I mentioned before, completely, so they not only have the task skills, but they also develop the people skills, because many of our industries now are based on teamwork. Your first question was, how did we go about transforming the college? That was not done by any one individual. That was done by a complete team of individuals working together, each of us having different strengths in what we do, but complementing each other and approaching our community with our vision. I mentioned our brand before. Our brand really is equivalent to our reputation. And we went out and said, we have a reputation that we want to be not different, or not just different than any other college, but we want to be better and help us be better. What's missing in higher education in terms of art and design, and how can we make our students competitive in their chosen profession?
I like that you mentioned apprenticeship. It's very important, or internship, I've heard it called sometimes. And it's so important. I think that's what they did in the Renaissance time. If you wanted to learn a particular trade, you would actually get with the master.
Exactly, and that's how the universities sprung up from those types of ideas, is that learning. Now, we're not a trade school, and we don't, we're not teaching students a specific trade. We're a higher education institution, so our students meet all the general ed requirements, etc. But most of our students, as being a state institution, our students are mostly interested in how they can transfer what they've learned, and part of it is learning how to learn, because whatever job they take, they will need to learn more, obviously. But why am I taking these courses in this sequence? They're not going to help me gain employment upon graduation. It's the benefit. So we think about that constantly in the College of Architecture and the Arts. Why we're offering the courses we're offering. Why are they offered in this sequence? How can we improve them? Who's teaching those courses? How are they qualified to teach those courses? Just because we've taught them in the past in that order with these people doesn't necessarily mean we should be teaching them that way in the future with these people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And also, I'm thinking, when you connect with them and you find out what works for each individual, are you able to customize it, or is it more based on, as time goes on, you realize, okay, this is not working anymore, we just need to change it based on the present student body?
Right. The curriculum change is not so much based on the student body, but more based on what is necessary in the industry to be competitive. Faculty are highly skilled. And most, if not all of them, are totally plugged into what's happening in the economy. And they understand the need to be able to give their students the skill set they need to be successful. For example, in architecture, art, landscape, interior, these are all licensed professions. So there are certain things a student will need to understand in order to be able to pass licensing requirements. It's not as if we can change those. One of those is making sure that they get sufficient work experience during their degree, so they can be ready if they choose to go for licensing, that they're prepared for that. So we built internships into that. Students need to be able in design to be able to use the computer. Well, more and more design firms are looking for students who have amazing computer skills. We need to make sure that we have the equipment and the latest software, so the students are well trained in that software. So when they move from their degree into the workforce, they understand the software. Many times our students are better trained than some of the people in the firms, because the firms need to retrain their employees on the latest software. Well, by connecting with industry, we gain access to much of that software and are able to help our students become proficient.
Yeah. And you mentioned something very important as well, the importance of teaching them to learn. That once you're out of school, often a lot of students think, okay, I'm done, I've gotten my graduate degree, or I'm a doctor now, I don't ever have to pick up a book or learn. But learning is a lifetime achievement. It's not you're done, I got my diploma and I get to call it quits. It's for the rest of your life. And if you teach them how to learn, then you can, wherever you go, you can continue to grow.
Exactly. And our students understand that because of the nature of our disciplines, all being in the creative disciplines. They're constantly questioning, making assumptions. Why am I doing this? How do I learn more? They're in the process of making art or making music, creating design, creating objects. So it's not something we have to instill in our students. They understand that when they graduate, they will continue to use those skill sets in their profession.
We mentioned something a little earlier on, that when the graduates are now entering the workforce, they have a lot of stress on their hands. They have to now navigate in working in the real world, and your school offers them the internship and the training to be able to transition smoothly. What would you say for others who might not be with Carta, who have kids who are in college and are scared about also the mounting debt, which a lot of people coming out of college are like, oh my gosh, I have $150,000 in debt. What advice would you have for those students ready to graduate?
Come to FIU.
That's right. Get out of that college right now.
Obviously, look at our webpage and consider registering for FIU. But seriously, if you're already in college, obviously one of the things you should be doing is looking at the possibility of internships and working in your chosen profession, so you can see if that's what you really want to do. If your listening audience is someone in higher education, I would ask that they work with their boards and their community to raise scholarship dollars so the student doesn't have to go into debt. Obviously, it's beyond my purview on what higher education is costing these days, but it's important that especially a state institution like the one I'm at, that the taxpayers and the governor and the legislators understand the importance of higher education to the state and the economic benefits of having a well-trained workforce, a well-educated workforce, not just in terms of driving the economy, but all the other social benefits, that it's a great investment and that we should try to keep tuition costs reasonable for students so they have a chance to be successful.
I love that you mentioned that point of keeping it reasonable. We often talk about, I have a passion on the side that I don't do for a living, which is flying, and the costs are astronomical. And there are certain things in life that do cost a lot, and you sometimes wish that those industries would bring the cost down to make it affordable for everyone and not make it that you'd have to go into debt or a huge amount of debt for it. But I like that you mentioned also that students should actually intern to try out what they think they're interested in doing later on, because maybe it's not even a good fit. And wait till you graduate and then take a job and find out you hate it and you've gotten a degree in it. It can end up hurting you later on when you have to go back and get a whole new degree.
Yeah, and if you're not able to intern, maybe volunteer.
Yeah.
Volunteer in your field of interest. Get a feel for what it is that you will be doing upon graduation. Now, not every college degree is geared towards a specific profession. I don't want to make it that simplistic.
Yeah.
But when you enter college, there is something to be said for entering college, not knowing what you want to do when you graduate and coming out with that idea. That is one of the beauties of higher education, is that the university is a safe place to ask questions and to learn things and to generate new information and new knowledge and grow. But if you're investing $20,000, $30,000 a year in that growth process, it's important when you graduate that you'll have a return on investment than what you want to do.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's a great idea to, at least, even if you have a degree, say, in human resources, and you're thinking, hey, I might like to be a psychiatrist later on, there's nothing wrong with maybe going into a clinic, volunteering, and seeing, is that the field I really want to enter when I'm done with this, and get my graduates there.
Exactly. 100% in support of that. There's book learning, and then there's not book learning, and internships are not book learning. It's actually, getting your hands and your mind and you're immersed in that field.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Actually, in my 20s, I had a passion for working with children with autism, and I thought maybe become a psychiatrist. And so I, as a part-time basis, took a job aside from my full-time job on doing that on the weekends. And within a couple of semesters, realized it was totally not the area for me to move into. But that's why I can totally see what you're saying. There is great value in just going out there in real life and trying it out, like trying on a pair of shoes.
Exactly. Even if the experience wasn't positive in the sense that that's what you end up doing in your profession, I'm sure it was still positive in the sense that you learned something there. And, it may be perceived as others, I tried it and I didn't like it, so therefore it was not a good idea. In fact, just the opposite. You tried it, you didn't like it, and you probably saved yourself a lot of time and energy about preparing yourself for something you didn't really want to do.
Well, it also gave me a greater respect for people who think differently, learn differently, because a lot of these students were brilliant in their own way. A lot of them were high-functioning autism, some of them not. But it allowed me to appreciate all people for where they are.
And that's the beauty of higher education. When we create public-private partnerships, those opportunities become available. So when we partner with industry locally or nationally, they offer access to their workforce to our students. They offer scholarships for our students, and our students have access into those industries that they normally would not have. So our curriculum completely transforms itself, by these public-private partnerships.
Absolutely. And I know earlier you mentioned the STEAM educational model as a way to really help your students get out into the world and be more rounded and critically think, and then take that knowledge and actually make things in reality into our society that make it better. But is there a way that the educational model of STEAM can actually help reduce a lot of our issues in our nation, from political, economic, environmental? Can it help with those issues?
Here in Miami, one of the critical issues that we're facing, anyone who lives in a coastal community, will be climate change and the impact of rising seas. So that's not a scientific question alone, right? You're going to need scientists who are going to have to study water temperatures and what happens to animals and what happens when the water reaches a certain, if it goes up 2 more degrees, what will happen and how the weather will change. But you're also going to need the creative folks who are going to have to figure out what's the flexible approach, what's the adaptive strategies, what do we do with the roadways, how do we design the next city, how tall should that city be, where should cities be planned. So it really is that combination. So when you mentioned other issues other than economic, well, that's social, that transcends our entire, who we are as a nation. That's exactly what STEAM will be looking at. So you can take it, maybe it's not to an extreme any longer, but you can even look at issues of national security and what that means. We need a well-educated workforce in the 21st century that can address some of these very, very challenging issues that the country will face. And I'm a firm believer that, again, higher education has a responsibility, especially those of us in institutions that are taking money from the taxpayers who are investing in this education, that we have a responsibility to those communities to be looking at those challenges. The university is the research and development. It is an asset, scientific asset, a cultural asset, an educational asset, a workforce training asset. There's a lot of things higher education can do to improve our future.
And this brings me to mind, Brian. How about the lower education brackets from grammar school on their way up to college and university? STEAM can also be used to also enhance those systems as well.
100%. There's plenty of well-documented evidence that when the arts are integrated into K through 12 education, that students actually score better in science. They're retained, they stay in school longer, they graduate sooner, they develop all kind of creative and innovative skills that perhaps they would not have had the opportunity to develop otherwise. So it is a very good investment of integrating. And I'm not saying replacing. It's not that you take out math and put in music. It's that math and music, again, go hand in hand, and they're part of the entire educational process.
I like that you just mentioned that about not replacing, but adding, because I actually went to a school in Virginia where I got to choose if I wanted to take a music class or take a math class, because they kind of felt, well, there's kind of math and music, so we can eliminate mathematics, which later then hindered me getting into a college because now my math scores were really low. So it wasn't in benefit to me. It was actually like I could do both. And there is a way to add both where even if you're not strong in that suit, you can still learn it at any capacity.
Correct. And for the sake of argument, let's say that we don't have the ability to transform education overnight. Mm-hmm. But if parents and students understand that, that doesn't mean that you preclude yourself from not getting involved in the arts simply because it's not offered in your school. As a parent, you can still have your child engaged in the arts. You can still take them to cultural activities. You can still get music lessons or acting lessons or drawing lessons or just, creative thinking, that type of stuff. So it would be ideal that it's in the public schools or continues to be stressed in the public schools and integrated into the curriculum as a major component of the whole educational experience. It's also wise that while it's not in some cases as prevalent as it once was or should be, that as a parent we can make sure our children still have access to the arts.
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned that as well, Brian, because some out there might say, well, I'm too busy as a mother, or I can't afford dance lessons or whatever. But hey, I mean, there's always ways to get out there in culture in some fashion, in some way. Especially in the summertime, it's awesome because there's a lot of free stuff outside, outdoor concerts, outdoor programs, art. So there is a way to get out there. You just have to look for it. And that quality time spent with your child is worth it because it'll allow them to be a well-formed individual and adult later on.
Couldn't agree more. Here at FIU, we try to offer as many free programs for students in our community that we possibly can. I mentioned one before, when the MakerBot Innovation Lab opens in the fall. That will be open to the community for them to come in and use it. To learn how to do 3D printing. We offer a design camp here on Miami Beach for students that's subsidized, again, by a grant. It's not free. A grant is paying for the student's tuition, but if a student meets the requirements, which have nothing to do with design, they more have to do with interest, willingness to put in 2 weeks during the summer for the camp, then we offer them that opportunity. And I'm sure every university, college, community college, high school are doing similar things across the nation. If we just, look at them, they're available.
Yeah, so actually transforming our educational system is really a community thing with parents and kids and the whole community just chipping in together to make it a better educational system, because not one school can do it, not one teacher, not one state. It takes everyone getting involved.
It does. Here at FIU, for example, though, we're one of the largest institutions in the country. We have over 50,000 students. So when we do something, we can be impactful in what we're doing, because it changes quite a bit it has a lot of impact in our community when we change the curriculum. The sheer magnitude of the students that we're educating at this university, we graduate the largest number of bachelor's and master's students, Hispanic students in the nation.
Wow.
So, we're focused on minority serving institution, which is, again, a different type of model than other universities across the country. But here in Miami, Hispanics are the majority of the population. So it's natural that FIU, being the only public research university in Miami, the majority of students would be Hispanic.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you were able to come out and share all this wisdom with our audience. And anyone out there who wants to find out more about Carta, how can they do that?
They can do that a couple ways. One way they can do is go to the general university webpage, which is fiu.edu. Mm-hmm. And specifically for the College of Architecture and the Arts, they can go to our webpage, which is the acronym carta.fiu.edu. Those are two ways that you can. And you can also email us at the same thing, carta@fiu.edu. And I would encourage your listeners to look at what FIU has to offer, not just in the arts, but also in all the other programs we offer. But also specifically in the arts, take a look at our programs. And many of our programs are offered fully online these days, too. So whether you lived in Miami or not in Miami or in South Florida, you have the opportunity to benefit from our programs that are fully online.
Great. So does that mean if you're in maybe New York or even California, you can take courses online and get a degree?
Even in China, all over the world.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm so glad you were able to come out here and share all this wisdom and knowledge. Thank you so much, Dr. Brian Schriner, for coming on Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Wednesday, July 15th, 2015, from 6 to 9 p.m., Savvy Central Radio hosts our 4th live interactive business networking event and interview with our guest, national seminar leader and best-selling author Paul Mlajenovic. Paul shares with us his classic program, Zero Cost Marketing. Come join us for a fun-filled evening with fellow entrepreneurs over light fare and cocktails as you build valuable contents and knowledge. If you're in the New York City area, get your tickets today and come join us at bit.ly.com/savvymarketing.